Let us pray. Holy One, we gather at this moment of new beginnings to celebrate all that has been accomplished by our graduating students and our honored guests. Coming from 85 countries and from more than 1,000 individual paths, these graduating students have today gone through with character and hard work to the completion of their studies. They have committed themselves to learning that will prove to be lifelong and never ceasing, and we celebrate their accomplishments. The journey that has led them here to this moment has asked much of them and even changed them, but they have persisted in the move toward deeper discovery in ways that have been critical and creative and always informed and humbled by the beauty around us and the mystery within us. Be with us this day as we celebrate this journey of discovery that has opened the curious and the wondering to the challenges of learning and new ways of understanding. We acknowledge in this moment that we have been joined in a common purpose through exams and courses, research and international experiences, and all those educational opportunities that have arisen both in and outside of the classroom here at Lehigh and around the world. We have been learning to take responsibility for this world of ours, a world that is complex, diverse, troubled, and morally challenging. Today, we lay the charge to these graduates that they see an interdependent world yearning to be built anew on the foundations of peace and cooperation, and built as a home for all, where all are welcomed, where every stranger is greeted as an honored guest, where all take responsibility to use the gifts of mind and heart to confront ignorance and hatred, and bring into the world civility and respect for all, especially those who have experienced disadvantage. On this day of new beginnings, in this moment of joy and thanksgiving, we express gratitude for all that those about to commence have achieved. We express gratitude for all who have made an effort here to create educational experiences of lasting value. And we call again for wisdom to descend upon us, to fill our hearts and minds, that we might return in service to others all that we have so richly received in privilege and as blessing. Amen.
Please be seated. Good morning. As chair of the Board of Trustees of Lehigh University, I, Kevin Clayton, on behalf of the board, declare the 151st commencement exercises of Lehigh University to be open. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the president of Lehigh University, John Simon.
Welcome to the 151st commencement of Lehigh University. On behalf of the entire campus community, I want to welcome all of our guests with us today, including the families and friends of our graduates, our speakers, members of the Board of Trustees, and members of the class of 1969, who will be celebrating their 50th reunion in June. I feel a special kinship with the class of 2019. You and I were all Lehigh first years together back in the summer of 2015. You were moving into your freshman dorms at the same time I was moving into the president's house. And now you're ready to leave me behind. And I'm proud and happy to wish you well as you depart South Mountain and embark on your next adventure. Academic regalia uses colors to symbolize degrees attained and particular fields of study. In the same manner, when we look out across the sea of graduates today, we observe that many of the students are wearing stoles and cords of various colors and designs. These symbolize the many different awards, organizations, and achievements that were so much a part of their Lehigh experience. I encourage you to engage the students at the college receptions following this ceremony and ask them for the stories behind what they're wearing. It is now my honor to begin these exercises by introducing our graduate student speaker, Mohammad Shahabsafa, who earned his doctorate degree in industrial engineering in December. A native of Iran, Mohammad earned both his Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in industrial engineering from Sharif University in Tehran. He came to Lehigh because of the industrial engineering department's focus on mathematical optimization and operations research. Recognizing Mohammad's scholarly potential, Lehigh awarded him both the Gottschall Fellowship and a Rossin Doctoral Fellowship. He was also named the PhD Student of the Year for the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering in 2017. As a research assistant at Lehigh, Mohammad focused on several projects, including an Air Force-funded study to optimize the design of airplane wings. A leading example of how Lehigh's ingenuity is directly impacting society is Mohammad's research that helped create the Inmate Assignment Decision Support System, which streamlines and optimizes the assignment of prison inmates. Since 2016, this optimization system has been used by the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections to correctly match more than 25,000 inmates with the facilities and programs they need. It has the potential to shorten prison stay and reduce prison relapse by giving inmates more timely access to the treatment programs they require to earn parole. This process has already saved the state and taxpayers more than $3 million and has projected savings of close to $20 million over the next 5 years. For their invention, Mohammad and the team of Lehigh engineers, which includes his dissertation advisor, Tomas Terlaki, received the International Daniel Wagner Prize for Excellence in Operation Research Practice in 2017. The team was also honored on the floor of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives and Senate. Mohammad co-founded the startup company Optima with Dr. Terlaki to continue to develop, support, and market the system to other states whose correctional systems and inmates can benefit from its optimization. Please join me in welcoming our graduate student speaker, Mohammad Shahabsafa. Mohammad.
Thank you, President Simon, for the nice introduction. Good morning, class of 2019, faculty, families, and friends. And congratulations, fellow graduates. We all made it through. I recall from my first undergrad presentation, I was so nervous that my legs were shaking. Now here I am, 10 years later, speaking in front of thousands of my Lehigh family at Commencement. By the way, my legs are not shaking today. My name is Mohammad Shahabsafa, and I'm honored and humbled to speak on behalf of the 2019 graduate students. I would first like to sincerely thank my advisor, Professor Terlaki. He has been a mentor to me in my career and in my life. I would also like to thank my wife, Sajida, who has always supported me in overcoming the hardships and challenges of PhD life. Graduation from college is an auspicious occasion. Usually parents and relatives join the graduate to celebrate this happy occasion. However, as an Iranian student who moved to the US 6 years ago to pursue my graduate studies, I don't have the privilege of having my parents and siblings present here to share today's celebration with me. From thousands of miles away, I would like to send my sincere thanks to my parents, brother, and in-laws, who were friends to me and helped me to achieve my goals. Nevertheless, I'm blessed to have my wife and Lehigh friends here today to support my graduation and partially fill the gap. I remember my first day in the US, arriving at JFK with my wife. From all we had in life, we brought only 4 suitcases and left everything else behind. It was a hard decision to give up all we had with the hope of building a better future. I knew it was going to be tough, but I didn't know how tough it would be. My first year at Lehigh was probably the hardest year of my life. I was overwhelmed by all that I was going through. A new language, new culture, and a new environment. We didn't even know where to go for groceries. At that time, I asked myself, what the hell have I done? However, too much was at stake, and we had to continue on. I started doing research in my first year, but by the end of my 3rd semester, my advisor and I knew that the original idea we had would not work out, and I would have to change my research topic. At that time, I wondered if I was capable of delivering what was expected. I saw that failure as a threat to my goal of earning a PhD. But after a while, I started looking at it differently. I learned that research is not always predictable, and that challenges open up new opportunities. I began researching what ultimately formed my dissertation. It has brought me accomplishments that I never even dreamed of when starting PhD. Professor Terlaki once told me that progress is not obtained by a one-night idea. It is realized through constant hard work. That's probably the most important lesson for me in research and in life, that there is no shortcut. Hard work is the key to making progress and being successful. My journey at Lehigh has been incredible. Lehigh's entrepreneurial spirit and invaluable resources, like the Ben Franklin Incubator, have enabled me to co-found a startup company. And I know that for me and for all of us, even greater opportunities are yet to come. I come from Iran, a country of poetry and love. I would like to offer you a poem from the great poet Saadi from 700 years ago. به راه بادیه رفتن به از نشستن باطل که گر مراد نیابم به قدر وسع بکوشم. Going down the path of desert is better than sitting idly. For if I cannot accomplish my ultimate goal, I would try as hard as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammad. I would now like to introduce the president of the senior class, Giovanni Zlaket, who is graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in Behavioral Neuroscience in the pre-health track. An international student from Lebanon, Giovanni learned about Lehigh from a program available to the top 10% of academically talented high school students in his country. Although he shared that his first year was tough as he adjusted to speaking English, everything changed for him as a sophomore when he left his comfort zone and got involved. Not only did Giovanni become fluent in English, he became a peer tutor as a track writing fellow in his senior year and taught English to Syrian refugee children when he returned to Lebanon for a summer. Giovanni has served in many leadership roles and said that being elected class president was one of the biggest highlights of his life. As a member of the Council of Student Presidents, he analyzed current issues and campus challenges. He gained additional leadership and communication experience as a Griffin in Carruthers Residence Hall. Giovanni served as secretary of the Middle Eastern Student Union and was a member of the outreach and recruitment teams for LU Diplomats, a club that welcomes international students to Lehigh. An undergraduate student researcher in the Rice Lab at Lehigh, Giovanni assisted with behavioral tests, studying the difference in catching rice rates between hybrids and parental species of birds. With plans to become a cardiologist, he recently completed an externship with St. Luke's University Health Network, shadowing medical residents in many clinical rotations. Giovanni hopes to be starting a position soon at Lehigh Valley Health Network and will be applying to medical schools in the coming year. Please join me in welcoming our senior class president, Giovanni Zlaket.
Thank you, President Simon. Good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome friends, families, faculty, administrators, and the Board of Trustees to the 2019 commencement ceremony. It is an honor for me to be standing here, giving a few remarks to the wonderful class of 2019. First, I would like to thank everyone for making the distinct effort to be here today, whether that be by traveling a great distance or taking time off work. We truly appreciate everyone's presence in support of our graduating class. In addition, I would like to thank my mom for her emotional support, my dad for paying tuition, my brother for being a role model, FML for giving me a place to socialize, and lastly, my bed for being there for the fleeting moments of rest I've gotten over the past 4 years. It is mostly because of them that I am able to stand here today. I want to share with you the story of my life. I come from a French school in the Middle East, so English is not my strength. And to be honest, I was shy. Too shy to talk to people, to make friends, to make connections. It was not until my sophomore year that I chose to change. I confronted my weakness, and I chose to step out of my bubble and to talk, to participate. And believe me, that changed my life. That is how I became my best self, by choosing to be better. My acceptance into the Griffin Society came as a surprise, and I was so nervous to meet my 28 first-year students. It took me all summer just to prepare for our first introduction to our new residents. Becoming in Griffin inspired me to do even more. It gave me the confidence in my sophomore year to run for class president, allowing me to speak in front of you today. Since then, I have made it my mission to continue pushing my boundaries and to stay engaged in the Lehigh community. So, my piece of advice for today, my thoughtful and meaningful remark: choose to get out of your comfort zone. That is exactly what I am doing at this very moment by speaking in front of you. You've heard it so many times, get out of your comfort zone. And sometimes it really is difficult. But remember, you will most likely encounter people in your life who are accepting, inclusive, and understanding. It is up to you, and only you, to go above and beyond, to keep growing as an individual. It is up to you to keep raising your own bar. Anyway, that is all I have for now. I would like to thank everyone who has been involved in our 4 years at Lehigh University. From the faculty and staff to all those working tirelessly behind the scenes. You've been a vital component of our 4 years at Lehigh University. Lastly, I'd like to thank Lehigh for giving each and every single one of us countless of opportunities to reach our fullest potential. It has been an amazing and memorable journey, class of 2019. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. I would now like to introduce Michael Mauriello, who was elected by the Undergraduate Commencement Speaker Committee to offer remarks today. He was selected by his peers because of his contributions to the Lehigh community and his ability to reflect on the mission and values of our university. Michael hails from Springfield, New Jersey. He said he knows from his first of 4 visits to Lehigh that he needed to come here, in part because everyone he met, from faculty and staff to current students to alumni, loved Lehigh at a level he had not experienced anywhere else. Michael applied what he learned at Lehigh by completing 2 internships with World Finer Foods. During the first, he helped the marketing department launch a campaign for a new product. In typical Lehigh student fashion, he received such positive reviews that they asked him to come back the next summer to intern in the finance department, where he helped create a streamlined internal system of communications. As an undergraduate, Michael was the second baseman for the baseball club and a member of the finance club. He also helped incoming first-year students in the inaugural year of the Mentor Collective at Lehigh. Although his only previous experience with debating was with his parents, he joined the Debate Society his first year and was the club's treasurer for 4 years. The highlight of Michael's senior year has been working as an admissions fellow, where he was happy to give back what he received from Lehigh by sharing his experiences and love for the university with prospective and incoming students. Today, Michael will receive his Bachelor of Science degree with a double major in finance and marketing. He's looking for a position that will allow him to apply all that he has learned at Lehigh. Please join me in welcoming Michael Mauriello.
Thank you, President Simon. Good morning, everyone. As you just heard, my name is Michael Mauriello, but I'm sure most of you know me better as who? And I would like to welcome all of you here today in celebration of the Lehigh University class of 2019. Now, I am incredibly honored and a little annoyed to have been given the impossible task of summarizing the greatest 4 years of my life in just 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay. As President Simon so kindly mentioned, between my double major, clubs, sports, music, on-campus jobs, friends, internships, and other activities, I don't think I was a very passive member of the Lehigh community. Sleep deprived, yes, but passive, no. Now, I'm sure I can guess what all of you are thinking. So what? I did just as much as him, if not more. What makes him so special? And honestly, nothing. I'm just a typical Lehigh student. I have no doubt each of you has a similar resume of achievements, and why shouldn't you? This kind of behavior is normal on this campus. It's expected. You see, Lehigh is more than just a university. It's a way of life. Our daily achievements are viewed through the lens of this extraordinary environment as ordinary accomplishments. Our behavior is ordinary. Double majoring is ordinary. Being on the executive board of a couple clubs is ordinary. Playing a sport at the club or varsity level is ordinary. Studying abroad, meeting with corporate executives, building infrastructure, starting a business, speaking at the United Nations, it's all ordinary. We do incredible things every single day because we don't know any better. In the eyes of Lehigh students, we constantly push toward and exceed our expectations and the expectations of others because to us, that is ordinary. Success, ambition, and perseverance are not just words here. They're values and beliefs that have been instilled in us since day one. Professor Sinclair summed it up perfectly for me 4 years ago during Candidates Day, when he said, "At most universities, you graduate with an accounting degree, pass the CPA exam, and earn a good living. Most people would consider that a success. If that's where you land after leaving Lehigh, we failed you. That's not enough for our students. Lehigh graduates are captains of industry. They run companies. Lehigh does not produce students who are ready to tackle the world. Lehigh prepares young men and women who are going to change the world. How I made the most of my time here was by embracing the traditions upon which this institution was founded. The mentality that good enough never is. The desire to always strive to achieve more. Right here, right now, this is our greatest accomplishment so far. But it will not be our greatest accomplishment ever. As we leave this campus, we will all be taking a piece of it with us. It is a part of our soul and the foundation upon which we will continue to build as we transition into the real world and discover just how extraordinary our ordinary is. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I would now like to invite Kevin Clayton to the podium to introduce the 2019 commencement speaker.
It is now my privilege to introduce our commencement speaker, Ambassador Richard Verma, a Lehigh alumnus from the class of 1990 and former U.S. Ambassador to India. As Vice Chairman of the Washington, D.C.-based the Asia Group, he continues to forge partnerships by guiding U.S. and multinational corporations operating in Asia. Ambassador Verma came to Lehigh on an Air Force ROTC scholarship, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Engineering with a minor in International Relations. While serving in the military, he earned his law degree from American University and his Master of Law from Georgetown University. He later served as the Air Force Judge Advocate and received both the Meritorious Service and Air Force Commendation Medals. After completing his tour of duty, Ambassador Verma joined the global law firm of Steptoe and Johnson and specialized in national security law, international trade, and public policy. Asked to serve his country again, he left the firm as a partner and began more than a 2-decade-long career shaping U.S. foreign policy. The distinguished positions he has held in government include Senior National Security Advisor to the Senate Majority Leader, Commissioner to the Prevention of Weapons of Mass Destruction and Terrorism, Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs, and a member of the Secretary of State's Foreign Affairs Policy Board. Those qualifications prepared Rich well for serving in his next position as the 25th U.S. Ambassador to India, the first Indian American to do so. Ambassador Verma oversaw one of the largest diplomatic operations in the world. Forbes magazine called him one of the most consequential envoys ever to occupy this prestigious post. This assessment is all the more impressive when one considers that Ambassador Verma's predecessors included such legendary public servants as John Kenneth Galbraith and Thomas Pickering. 2 years as ambassador, they have been described as transformational in U.S.-India relations, deepening bilateral engagement in every sphere, including defense, trade, and climate change. While ambassador, Rich was instrumental in identifying opportunities that expanded Lehigh's global footprint in India, which included establishing a new student exchange with Ashoka University just north of New Delhi. He also strengthened the ties amongst the Lehigh community in India and hosted a marquee event at the United States Embassy in New Delhi to share Lehigh's mission to expand its presence in the country. Ambassador Verma has faithfully served Lehigh since his undergraduate days as class president, a role he continued as an alumnus. He has also served on the Lehigh University Alumni Association Board of Directors and is now an appointed member of the university's Board of Trustees. Rich has been widely honored for his commitment and accomplishments in public service and received the Chief Justice John Marshall Lifetime Achievement Award from the Judge Advocates Foundation. Honored by Lehigh in 2016, he received the Industrial Systems Engineering Distinguished Alumni Award in Excellence in Industry. We are truly privileged to have this esteemed ambassador, public servant, and loyal alumnus with us today. Please join me in welcoming our 2019 commencement speaker, Ambassador Richard Verma.
Well, Kevin, thank you for that warm introduction. President Simon, members of the Board of Trustees, faculty, family, friends, and especially the class of 2019. You made it. Congratulations. Now, some of you may have seen the news yesterday that a very distinguished commencement speaker at Morehouse College, Mr. Robert Smith, pledged to pay off the college loan debt of the Morehouse graduating class of 2019. I want to make an announcement along a similar lines here today, but that won't be happening here at Lehigh. But we are seeing if Mr. Smith is available to be next year's commencement speaker. But it was an extraordinary, generous commitment. And speaking of generosity, let me say a word about our terrific chairman of the Board of Trustees, Kevin Clayton. Kevin and his family have given their all to this university. And I'll just tell you, when I was being sworn in as ambassador, there was a ceremony at the State Department presided over by the Secretary of State. It was a nerve-wracking, tense, uncertain time. And when I looked out into the audience, there were hundreds of people there, and right in the third row, there was Kevin. Kevin was giving me that nod, saying, "Come on, you can do this." And when I looked behind Kevin, when I looked to the right and left, and when I looked in front of Kevin, There was a team of people from Lehigh there. And I remember thinking to myself, who invited them and how did they get through security? No, seriously, it was a reassuring moment and a reminder of how much this school looks out for, supports its graduates, not only today, but well into the future. So thank you, Kevin, for all that you do each day for Lehigh. I had arrived at Lehigh for freshman orientation in August of 1986. I moved into M&M B3. As Kevin noted, I was in Air Force ROTC. I played ice hockey. I pledged a house. I studied abroad. I majored in industrial engineering. And I had a double minor, one in international relations and one in beer pong. Some cheers for the beer pong department. The beer pong minor has not benefited me as much as I had hoped. Now, years after I graduated from Lehigh, my dad told me that my mom cried the whole way home after dropping me off freshman year. She was so proud of you, my dad told me, but also so sad that you were growing up and moving out and on to college. My mother's experience probably wasn't that unique, so to the parents, grandparents, family, and friends that are gathered here, this is a day to recognize all of you as well, so let's give all the family members and friends here a big round of applause. Now, your tuition payments are finally coming to an end as well, so perhaps there are tears of joy out there today, too. And to the faculty and staff, we thank you and congratulate you for helping to mold and train this exceptional graduating class. I know you have prepared them to lead, to question, and to help others. I'm also sure every day was not easy, but I know you will be watching them proudly as they get ready to embark on a new chapter in their lives. And to the class of 2019, I'm sure a few of you were up past your bedtime last night and may have even done some celebrating. Some of you may still be celebrating. But we are so proud of you and excited for you. Today is your day. Now, I should tell you, when my friends found out I was giving this address, I started to receive some rather unsolicited suggestions and emails pointing me towards the best commencement addresses ever given. Steve Jobs at Stanford, J.K. Rowling at Harvard, Ellen DeGeneres at Tulane, Oprah, Conan. The emails and suggestions just kept coming, enough to really stress you out. But I was heartened, I think, when one of my close friends said, "Don't worry, no one will ever remember a word you say anyway." So with that advice in mind, and knowing that I stand between you and your diplomas, I will try to keep this brief. Now, a lot of people ask me, what was it like being ambassador? Did it go to your head? All the pomp and circumstance, the fancy title, the diplomatic residence, and so much more. And each day, I would tell myself to stay grounded, stay true to that kid who grew up in Western Pennsylvania in Johnstown and went to college in Bethlehem. I'd like to believe I was successful, but I have to tell you, that kid from Johnstown was never far from the spectacle, the lights, and the glory. There was, for example, the time when I was scheduled to meet His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, the renowned global spiritual leader who lives in India. I will never forget the date and time of that meeting, February 6th at 8 a.m. New Delhi local time. Now, why did I remember that so clearly? Because it was the start of the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 51, which, if you will recall, included the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time, with the Patriots scoring 25 points in the final quarter and into overtime. Just for the record, I am a Steelers fan, but... Now, I recall asking my wife, I said, "Can I miss a meeting with the Dalai Lama to watch the Super Bowl?" "Only if you want to get struck down by lightning," she said. Then my 9-year-old son piped up. He said, "Dad, maybe the Dalai Lama is watching the game." Now, this gave me new hope. Yes, perhaps the Dalai Lama was watching the Super Bowl in the suite where I was meeting with him. So I was checking the score repeatedly on the way over, hitting refresh on my phone. Oh my gosh, what a game. I'm going to watch the final minutes with the Dalai Lama. This is going to be great. I was escorted into his large ceremonial room where, yes, there was a big and beautiful flat-screen TV hanging just above where the Dalai Lama was seated. And the TV was off. Right then, you are confronted with one of those kids from Pennsylvania moments where your football-watching roots are begging you to ask the Dalai Lama to turn on the Super Bowl. While your more refined State Department diplomatic training is demanding that you maintain the dignity of the office. Well, on that day, I'm happy to report I never did watch the game. I missed the fourth quarter, and in the end, I thankfully did not embarrass all of you or the nation at large. But I want to tell you, it was a close call, a really close call. Now, in all seriousness, serving as ambassador was the honor of a lifetime. And I suspect my Indian parents still wished I had gone to medical school and become a doctor, but ambassador was an okay landing spot. I will tell you, one of the most moving experiences was to go back to the villages where my parents were raised so many years ago. I visited the one-room flat where my mom and grandmother lived following the partition that divided India and Pakistan. I went to the school where my grandmother taught in a very poor area of Punjab in a girls' school. Thousands of people came out to greet me. Uncles and aunties came up to me. They squeezed my cheeks and told me how my mom and grandma had put them on the right path, and without their guidance, they would not have been where they were today. I also visited my dad's college, delivered the commencement address there, and saw where he studied. He likes to talk about his arrival in the U.S. in 1963 with only a few dollars and a bus ticket. My mom and dad worked so hard, and the fact that I could go back to the country of my roots 50 years later to represent the United States was such a long shot. But it was also a very American story, an immigrant story. And they say you don't know where you're going in life until you know where you came from. Well, I was so lucky to fully see and understand where I had come from. My parents would eventually become U.S. citizens, and I will never forget how proud they were to become citizens while also maintaining their roots and cultural traditions from India. It was an important reminder that our diversity is our strength. It gives us unique advantages in the world. When I was serving in the military and overseas with the State Department, I was so inspired to meet so many soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Foreign Service officers who were not born in this country and who did not speak English as their first language. Yet they decided to devote their lives to serving and protecting the United States, the country that welcomed them. This is a vision of America that must endure. It's a vision that allows me, an immigrant, a naturalized citizen, and a veteran, to stand before you today. Now, 29 years ago, I stood right here and delivered the commencement address as senior class president. I recall experiencing many of the same feelings as I do today: excitement, nervousness, and of course, complete panic that I might pass out while delivering my remarks. When I think back to that day, I remember speaking about the dizzying amount of change that our class had experienced while at Lehigh, both on campus and around the world. If you recall, in the summer of 1990, the U.S. stood at the top of the world's pecking order. We had just won the Cold War after a long and dangerous decades-long standoff with the Soviet Union. We were unchallenged, unmatched, and uncontested. Around the globe, Cold War-era walls were falling and democracy was in full bloom, seemingly everywhere. We presumed those times would continue. And here on campus, too, the changes were coming at us swiftly, with what we thought at the time was a real crackdown on our social life and our way of life. I understand some of you may have felt a similar set of changes here too. Now, in 1990, the cost of a gallon of gas was $1.15. A movie ticket was $4. Smartphones and social media platforms did not yet exist. Home Alone was the #1 film at the box office, and Cheers was the top-ranked TV show. Madonna and New Kids on the Block were breaking records on tour. There were still 2 spaces after a period. And Game of Thrones was still nearly 30 years away from disappointing us. Now, you graduate from Lehigh today with unprecedented opportunities, with a remarkably different landscape from 1990. You entered Lehigh as one of the smartest classes we've ever had, shattering all records in your SAT scores, GPA, and class ranking. It is a pretty safe bet that I would have never been admitted here. You've accomplished so much on the athletic field, on campus, and literally around the world, studying in dozens of countries, and you've attracted a more global student body than ever before. But you have also inherited from us a range of real challenges. The U.S. is no longer the dominant and unchallenged world power. We face new and real competition from rising powers. We have either been unable or unwilling to stop the planet from warming. And we've seen an increase in authoritarian, nationalist, and populist regimes across the globe. And of course, we are facing real and deeply polarizing divisions right here at home. So the changes I talked about in 1990 have kept going at an incredible pace. And most of it has been exceedingly positive, but much of it has been deeply concerning. It's a cliche to say the time has gone by fast, but it has. My journey over these past 29 years has taken me around the world and back again, getting the chance to visit and work in dozens of nations, seeing our troops in combat zones and our aid workers in Africa and South Asia. It has been a roller coaster. I never thought I would be standing here again, but you've given me this great honor and opportunity to look back, think about Lehigh in my own life and what I learned and how it might be relevant to all of you. Boiling it down was tough, but here are 3 quick lessons I learned along my journey. First, I learned that the U.S. has a special and unique role to play in the world, and Americans are having a big impact. Now, I appreciate that for much of your upbringing, you've seen America perhaps in a different light, embroiled in seemingly endless conflicts. U.S. troops have been in Afghanistan for nearly as long as you have been alive. It's understandable if you would take a different view. All I can tell you is what I've seen. I've seen your government do heroic things overseas, provide critical aid after disasters, defend democracies under siege, help rebuild war-torn societies. At our embassy and consulates in India, I witnessed every agency of our government hard at work, often in difficult conditions. And it's not just our troops and diplomats having an impact abroad. Ordinary Americans, teachers, retirees, health professionals, and students like you are working in schools and medical clinics and development projects, often living in remote villages, and they are having a big impact. I met 2 young women from the Midwest who had started a garment business to employ the victims of human trafficking. I met a young engineer who designed a new solar pump to aid farmers in drought-distressed districts. I met energetic young Americans bringing baseball and basketball to impoverished areas with no access, let alone exposure to sports. These were innovators. They were young, ready, and willing to make a difference, just like all of you. And they are part of an even broader and longer legacy. We are approaching the 75th anniversary of what would most call the decisive battle of World War II, if not the 20th century, the Battle of Normandy, or D-Day, on June 6, 1944. On that day, some 175,000 troops fought courageously to begin what would become the end of Hitler's Nazi regime. As Stephen Ambrose writes in his great account of the battle, quote, "It all came down to a bunch of 18 to 28-year-olds. Only a few had ever been in combat. They were citizen soldiers, not professionals. They were soldiers of democracy, and to them we owe our freedom. Many of those 18 to 28-year-olds were part of this Lehigh family. Dozens of graduates and faculty served in the Normandy invasion. The U.S. and our allies made enormous sacrifices. As one Lehigh alum who took part in the battle would say years later, we left the real heroes on the beach. They're still there. So as your generation sets out to find the right balance for the U.S. role in the world, I would ask that you not forget about the good we have done and continue to do in different corners of the planet. You will have the opportunity to chart America's course in this century, and I hope you will draw upon the best of our traditions, the big hearts of our people, with the humility and responsibility that comes with power, and recognize that we are stronger when we stay engaged and work together with others on the problems that confront us. And that leads me to the second lesson I learned, and that is we are so much better off working together with our friends and allies than working alone. The problems you are inheriting cannot be solved by any one country. Climate change, pandemics, cyber attacks, terrorism, keeping our seas free and open, and so much more requires us to work together and treat our friends and partners with respect. This will require empathy, understanding, and reminding ourselves that history did not start yesterday, and that the map we studied growing up in grade school, depicting the United States at the center with all the other countries on the edges, is not actually how the world works. 60% of the world's population and 2/3 of the world's global economic growth comes from Asia alone. We can't cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. Isolation and retrenchment are not options. As you set out to do more globally, we cannot ignore how our internal divisions are hampering us overseas. As you well know, our country seems more and more polarized. We are divided by seemingly everything these days, by our political camps, by social and economic groupings, by geography, by those who went to college and those who did not. The list goes on, and it seems like the rift is only getting wider, with political leaders seeking to incite and exploit our divisions for electoral gain, blaming others, and degrading our national discourse. The world is not waiting for us to get our act together. Countries, both adversaries and allies, are sensing this is their moment, surprised that the U.S. is playing small ball as we attack each other. They are more than willing to fill the gap. We have to do better. And remember that there is so much more that unites us than sets us apart. Class of 2019, the world is at your fingertips. You're going to eradicate diseases like tuberculosis and malaria. You're going to put an astronaut on Mars. You're going to have an energy surplus for the first time in our history. And you're going to make this a more just and inclusive society. So don't get sidetracked. Reject the noise. Stand up for what you believe in, and do so with the humanity, heart, grace, and respect for others, both here at home and abroad. Now, what you'll notice as you depart from here today is that the days will go by quickly, as will the months and years. Soon you will be looking back on 3 decades with some combination of hope and nostalgia, as I am today. When we look back, the metrics of success will come in all forms: money, professional advancement, property, fame, and notoriety. But I'd encourage you to think about one more way to measure your success. And that is, ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What did you do to live a life of service and to serve others? What I have learned, and this is my third and final point, is that the most meaningful barometer of success will be whether you were there for others when they needed a hand. Did you speak up for those whose voices were not being heard? Did you stand up against an unfairness, an injustice, or the way someone was being treated? What did you do to contribute to your community, to your school, your church, your family, to the environment, or a worthy public cause? Were you part of something larger than yourself? You might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not going to go live abroad like you did or enter government service, and that's perfectly fine. You can be very successful in the private sector while also leading a life of service. The great Eleanor Roosevelt used to say that the real battle for social justice and equality are, quote, in the small spaces close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world, yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man and woman seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. My only point is you don't have to go too far or enter public service in order to serve others. Think of those small spaces close to home. You can have a great impact there. So when the joy and celebration of this day passes, when the clicks, the likes, and the posts from our social media feeds go quiet, when this stadium stands empty, when you are alone, asking yourself years from now, did I make a difference? Am I living a good life? Have I served others? Was I there when my family, my friends, or my community needed me? I know that answer will be yes. That's what Lehigh has prepared you to do. Now, a few people have asked me whether I would have said anything differently in my 1990 graduation speech, knowing what I know now. Well, I would have said a proper thank you to Lehigh, the faculty and staff, for the incredible education I received. I would have told my class to enjoy the ride, really and truly, because it will go by fast. And I would have said to my mom that she didn't have to cry all the way home, because Lehigh was going to take good care of me during my 4 years and well into the future. And I say the same to all of you, the graduating class of 2019. Enjoy the ride. We are so proud of you, and we are here for you today and for years into the future. Good luck and congratulations.
Thank you, Ambassador Verma. We now come to the primary reason that we are here, the conferring of degrees earned during the past academic year. All degrees conferred today are awarded upon the recommendation of the faculty with the approval of the Board of Trustees of Lehigh University. Will Patrick Farrell, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, please join me?
Sorry, I have to find my place. There we go. We will recognize each candidate by reading their name. We respectfully request that all candidates remain in their seats until called upon and return to their seats after being individually recognized. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. I now recognize Cameron Wesson, Interim Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences.
Thank you, Provost Farrell. I will now present the degree candidates for the College of Arts and Sciences. Will the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the College of Arts and Sciences please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in a field of specialization, and upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Doctors of Philosophy with your hearty congratulations and applause. I will now present the candidates for master's degrees in the College of Arts and Sciences. Will the candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Science please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the master's degree in a field of specialization and, upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Master of Arts or Master of Science with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the master's degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause. Will the candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science in the College of Arts and Sciences please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for graduation, and upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Sciences.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause. The ushers will now invite the degree candidates from the College of Arts and Sciences forward to be individually recognized.
The following graduates are receiving a doctorate-level degree. Aria Lynn Dougherty.
Iona Diane Scully.
Alan Charles Dyson.
Nick Angelo Unkson.
Pamela R. Gordon. Caitlin Margaret Owens. Erin Karahuta. The following graduates are receiving a master's level degree. Adam James Benfield.
Malcolm Jabari McLean.
Joseph Richard Lully.
Yanlin May.
Katrina Desiree Gelwick.
Yung Wang.
Matthew Glenn Huff.
Shi Shun Wo.
Ellie Hunter Jacobson, Eli.
Hao Nan Jiang.
Joshua Michael Gonzalez.
Xiu Chiulan.
Janelle Florencia Kiske Galang.
Estan Rubeles.
Lisa Marie Glover.
Haley Newton Pricekey.
Lucy Ann Loftus.
Mohammad Alzarani.
Vincent Gerard Behe.
Leslie Rose Tintel.
Karina Stephanie Fuentes Hernandez.
Jessica Marie Walkie.
Kevin John Kerner.
Catherine Lee Peterson.
Jacqueline Cook.
Kayani Singh.
Kayla Ashley Lombardo.
Brittany Ann Nicholson.
Shahad Altakil.
Marek Tomenik. Christine A. Webb. Aaron Predel.
The following graduates are receiving a bachelor's level degree.
Shijoke Chebokra Omenua,
Max Frankel,
Nikolai Thomas Redfern,
Christopher D'Agostino,
Tineri Ortiz,
Michael Gies,
Diana Noli Rivers Garcia,
Ashley Gray,
Beatrice Grace Kodo Malani,
Dominic B. Bragaloni III,
Theodore Goodman,
Nestle Unkinse,
Lucy Fuong Beck Sweet,
Victoria Elizabeth Aiken,
Kimberly Marisa Menhua,
Omar Ahmed,
Kathy Tai Huan Thring,
An Lu,
Kathy Tetabom,
Catherine Lee Keene,
Joanna Rampalu,
Bolly V. Connors,
Owen Caroline Pankita,
Emma M. Fitzsimmons,
Madeline Claire Smith,
Michaela Monica Garcia,
Tess Petula Yont,
Alexa Berliner,
Eliza Renee Paranello,
Daniel H. Factor,
Christiana Villani,
Jacob Leo Rader,
Anna Waterhouse,
Michelle Ann Amarizan,
Madeline Elise Pasda,
Gina Alpha Giraldi,
Samantha Colin Thomas,
Connor James Guilfoy,
Nico Krista Rezet,
Brett William Bear,
Danielle Toshisato,
Thomas Dylan Ball,
Madeline L. Rozak,
Claudia Nicole Cohen,
Bailey Elizabeth McDonald,
Kendall Roberts Coughlin,
Nicholas Rezweski,
Serena DeWeese Hiley,
William Slamman Sani,
Anna Rebecca Hill,
Angela Mario Rizzo,
Sydney Ray Botti,
Madison Perry Miranda,
Jordan Elena Abrams,
Jean Manuel Remer,
Benjamin Clark Porinetio,
Shiwen Xiang,
Thomas P. Kelly,
David James Piper,
Brian Paul Shannon,
Sean Spooner,
Sarah H. DePillis,
Aaron Timothy Nace,
Madeline May Brayman,
Victoria Rose McCauley,
Nadine Emily Clopton,
Ian James Mason,
Matthew Brown,
Anthony Wachowski,
Christopher Leonides Michael Demis,
Christopher Song,
Elizabeth Lindsay Anderson,
Lauren McKinley,
Quinn Henry Joyce Booth,
Guangwei Zhuang,
Joseph W. Belcastro,
Long Ting Shao,
Jamie Beth Korenberg,
Long Ping Shao,
Sophia Marissa Gracias,
Douglas Reinar,
Netta Sudkevich,
Samantha Marie Roth,
Rachel Michelle Grobiman,
Julia Holly Weinkoff,
Sarah Lauren Epstein,
Vicky Tajos,
Madeline A. David,
Sahar T. Sheik,
Sarah Adelaide Duval,
Alexis Kate McGowan,
Nancy Jane Howe,
Olivia Jane Sawa,
Karina Marie Bondasara,
Navette Africa Smith,
Alexandria Olivia Hanaby,
Paige Leanne Pagan,
Tiffany Margot Bauman,
Isel Marie L. Massino,
Dominic Blaze Behe,
Juliona Audrea Orajula,
Eliza Marie Dent,
Megan Pollock,
Bajessa Batebaya Bahumuda,
Ashley Kidolit Rabago,
Francis Akoto,
Emily Ann Sorum,
Fred Malawaram Akoto,
Lauren Ann Vargas,
Imani Bethuia,
Ashini Sanjir Patel,
Isabel Amaya,
Anna Carmen Walker,
Narda Lynette Caudillo Zavala,
Gina Marie Maurer,
Leslie Garcia,
Ellen Everett McCormick,
Nabila Malika Adriana,
Elizabeth Ann Naka,
Kanisha Jay-Z Raymond,
David William Widowson.
Jessica Noel Hicks.
Animal Madon.
Sydney Lauren Johnson.
Kevin Daniel Zhang.
Maya Monica Gashwaski.
Peter James Rogu.
John Lim.
Jake Samuel Shulan.
Grace H. Lynn.
Lena Alexandria Majer.
Melissa Marie Gustafsson.
Emily Elizabeth Reynolds.
Ara Lee Longe.
Jilly Remu.
Christelle Longe.
Aiden O'Carroll.
Matthew James Haney.
Kyle Eric Torrance.
Jake Tyler Berman.
Krishnan Madan.
Grant Keenan Cummings.
Gaiwin Wu.
Brian P. Dwyer.
Yiking Zhou.
Kia Janelle Baker.
Zi Yu Yen.
Alexandria Marie Lane.
Sabrina Emily Morawedge.
Colin James Fish.
Aisha Sajul Patel.
Yoon Yoon Gu.
Courtney Ray Mendello.
Alexandria Gonzalez.
Madison Ava Peterson Porta.
Yorobis Castillo Rodriguez.
Maximilian James Ranzato.
Holly A. Gowider.
Kevin Britton McConaughey.
Danny Hyman.
Nicole Kathleen Magura.
Madeline Estelle Kohlberger.
Caroline Ann Woodhead.
Emma Alexandra Halpin.
Jason J. Yang.
Felicia Olga Galvez.
Bu Q Sur.
Paige Lorraine Hypiman.
Josh Nearer.
Daniela Isabel Fraticelli Ortiz.
Jerry Russell Vogel III.
Raina Gabrielle Smilowitz.
Jawan Anthony Morrow.
Lauren Nicole Maselli.
Kobe Jude Miller.
Emily Josephine Hall.
Sarah Catherine Stankus.
Catherine Bell Owens.
Rachel H. Swope.
Amanda Suzanne DeGraff.
Christopher John Sorge.
Kira Grace Kehoe.
Dixie Lee Miller.
Teresa Nicole Carantinetto.
Amelia Grace Templeton.
Morgan Brooke Handworker.
Sarah Lee Salvo.
Stephen Badillo.
Chloe Mandel.
Noah B. Haber.
Caitlin Jade Rodriguez.
Olivia Lynn Bartz.
Catherine Rose Porwit.
Emily Martine Bushta.
Emily Ann Mailhot.
Maxine Derrick.
Alicia Barbara Rokas.
Sarah S. Huan.
Daniel Patrick Weaver.
Lanita Kim.
Jason Mack.
Austin Lance Kotz.
Lindsay Jane Taub.
Lana Azalea Villagracia Fabia.
Meredith Ellen Whistler.
Hadi Jihad El Kabi.
Elena Lee Solomon.
Dominic James Falcone.
Olivia Paige McYo.
Jafar S. Hassani.
Dario Benjamin Sabeduski.
Erin Elizabeth Hunsinger.
Julia Agnes McCooey.
Henrietta Heinel Lucas.
Vito Thomas Skoslow IV.
Brooke Pero Lichak.
Nicholas A. Sambataro.
Mary Gear Detherow.
Amanda Latondra Rogers.
George Halal.
Meredith Mackenzie Seitz.
Christopher Andrew Gaetano.
Mary August Olson.
Jamal Connolly.
Jean-Pierre Villamar.
Jameer Connolly.
Robert Trumbull Smith.
Erin Leah Home.
Eunice Yu.
Kala Dilly.
Erin Shauna Maria Weintraub.
Matthew Scott Groppel.
Hannah Alexandria Yaruz.
Layla A. Lerner.
Nicholas George Tevanigum.
Nicole Jacobson.
Bradley Thomas Mays.
Allison N. Kane.
James Peter Schultz.
Helen L. Chin.
Cameron Mark Richardson.
Jenna Nicole Liebright.
Lauren Piefer.
Madison Grace Hoff.
Julia Rose Reisner.
Roxana Bustamante.
Bridget Ann Surig.
Sarah Elizabeth Horn.
Renee Marlowe Reiner.
Patrick S. Horn.
Leah Rachel Nankoff.
Henry H. Fisher.
Megan Multy.
Lawrence Thomas Kerner.
Amy Caroline Wejula.
Alexander J. Ehrlich.
Madison Louise Welker.
Matthew Joseph Amador.
Monica Sophia Palma.
Joseph Volpe Cantu.
Charlotte Frances Reesum.
Brandon Alexander Fricker.
Croldy Volise.
Oscar Green.
Ashley Brielle Thurston.
Edward N. Bayo.
Stacy Robin Nadell.
Gregory Nicholas John Dutch.
Olivia Rose Reinold.
Melanie Hannelore Hand.
Max Morenberg.
Delilah Wen Su.
Giovanni Zlaket.
Yannick Maxwell Badaway.
Hannah Nunn.
Kang Ji.
Travis Weghofer.
Sino Snow Lee.
Ben Phi Kwan.
Ziyu Chen.
Eric Tyler Mintz.
Anyi Chen.
John Joseph Scudder.
Ryan Nathaniel Givens.
Amer Marone.
Megan Mary Arapare.
Alexander K. Tominello.
Hannah Marie Hedstrom.
Tristan Jeremy Singh Rai.
Patrick Joseph Andre.
Cole Bearclaw Walter.
Catherine S. Joe.
Eric William McDougall.
Laura Gwen Brockman Goldstein.
Natalie Sarah Martin.
Carolyn Lee Jennings.
Yan Jin.
Kaylee Christina Duggan. Jeffrey Matthew Friedemann. Emily Morgan Linderman. Elizabeth Catherine Gregory. Kirsten Francesca Hernandez. Nicholas James Wagner. Jared Ryan Pass. Alejandra B. Godinez. Alyssa Eve Balke. Jasper Dale Jeffrey. Keetong Jen. Samantha Deborah Dunford. Sarah Florence Cohen. Marina Helen Courageous. Michael Stephen Iona. Alina Guinness. Allison Krakwer. Alexandra Cohenberger. Elizabeth Gagliardi. Jennifer DiPietro. Maria Victoria Grunquist. Mallory Rose Fahey. Melissa G. Casacci. Catherine Marie Glyat. Caitlin Marie Hennessy. John A. Flory. Edward Eric Buhal. Mickey Sean Fitzpatrick. Christopher Andrew Rowan Kiernan. Olivia Grace Kelly. Luke Galvin. Jane Elizabeth Henderson. Mara Ann Henderson. Mary Ellen Catherine Karen. Lydia Jane Breen. Jordan Carl Cutler. Ruth Sidney Advocate. Noor Othwal. Taylor Elise Bogarty. Amanda Nicole Stein. Jake Bleacher. Peter S. Byler. Woon Se Ho. Wang Si Chan. Laura Ann DeFise. Thomas Rafael Gonzalez. Donovan Malik Harris. Stephen Mako Brisker. Julian Lynn. Lance Tahida II. Armani Tian Komick. Dontarius K. Walker. Alexander Kelsey. Carolis Abraham.
I now recognize Georgette Chapman Phillips, the Kevin L. Clayton, and Lisa A. Clayton, Dean of the College of Business and Economics.
Thank you, Provost Farrell. I will now present the degree candidates for the College of Business and Economics. Will the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the College of Business and Economics please rise? Representative Sample, yes. President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in a field of specialization and upon recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees. I present to you these candidates to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Doctors of Philosophy with our hearty congratulations and applause. I will now present the candidates for master's degrees in the College of Business and Economics. Will the candidates for the degrees of Masters of Business Administration, Masters of Science in Management, Masters of Science in Applied Economics, and Master of Science in Accounting and Information Analysis please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for their master's degree in the field of specialization and upon recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees. I present them to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Masters of Business Administration, Master of Science in Management, Master of Science in Applied Economics, or Master of Science in Accounting and Information Analysis, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the master's degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause. Will the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Business and Economics please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for graduation, and upon recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, I present them to you to receive the degree of Bachelor of Science in Business and Economics.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Bachelor of Science in Business and Economics, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Bachelor of Science degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause. The ushers will now invite the degree candidates from the College of Business and Economics forward to be individually recognized.
The following graduates are receiving a doctoral level degree. Yet UN. Huicho Shi. The following graduates are receiving a master's level degree. Arthur Daniel Archevsky.
Jeffrey Scott Malachevsky.
Hoshika Tachibana Miyata.
James Noriaka McMahon.
Nikasu Arroyo.
Joseph Michael Mercurio.
Ava Abanyakar Bigatel.
Sean Donald Zimmerman.
John Dieter Baylor.
Michelle Lynn Pelletier.
Sarah Vanna Lakshmi Kitnasamy.
Jeffrey Sam Thomas.
Shikurbek Gulmachinovich Marimov.
Subarato Sarko.
Patrick Costa.
Shiva Roju.
Joseph Patrick Fallon.
Deborah Rinaldi Watlington.
Douglas Richard Fell.
Sylvia Markley Garcia.
Prachi Agrawal.
Catherine Vasquez Tarazona.
David Harold.
Shaylin Shah.
James Ho.
Stephen Cullen Patsko.
Gabriela Rubsova.
Evan Kane Mayer.
David Gossesler.
Lance Million.
Puran Baru.
James Michael Turner.
Timesh Halabe.
Ralph Lyle Shields III.
Jeffrey Ian Ferguson.
Anna Rose Simano.
Wayne Yang Zhang.
Jingting Zhao.
Yang Yang Lee.
Kitsi Zhu.
Badal Dilip Javia.
Yushen Xia.
Xavier Aidi De Silva Thompson.
Shiku Zhao.
Stacy Bertolino.
Zhangming Park.
Gregory Carl Harrison.
Akil V. Patil.
Ian Scott Brown.
Meme Ulana Zventon.
Brandon Alexander Diaz.
Emily Elizabeth Motola.
Matthew Ryan Levin. Jake Nathaniel Gordon. Kimberly Elizabeth Crosta. Jennifer Ann Tomani. Sarah Grace Boyle. Emily A. Hansen. Haley Rose Goodman. Jared Isaac Horowitz. Michelle Allison Gorson. Ayuku Choi. Josephina Morales. Brian Lawrence Fanning. James Harding. Heiko Aschenbar. Brenner. Brian Timothy Trapp. Siquin Lee. Benjamin Cohen. Ralph Edward Fisher. Brian James Loftus.
The following candidates are receiving a bachelor's level degree. Allison Abramson.
Jacob Frank Scott.
Anup Joseph Alberts.
Devin Michael Polanis.
Samuel Isaac Levine.
Brian John Oshansky.
Kylie Courtney DeMaria.
John Raphael Pendergast.
Andrew H. Lavender.
Samuel Joseph McCloskey.
Michael Anarumo.
Kareem Ashayed Montgomery.
Dylan Philip Diaz.
Alexander Jan Peets.
Peter Ronald DeQ.
Timothy John Wolak.
Javier Nicholas Lima.
Michael Thomas Ricca.
Bridget Amber Bell.
Christopher Samuel Sinotitis.
Christine Elizabeth Gobes.
Michael Mauriello.
Kristen Nicole Kidd.
Connor O'Brien Quinlan.
Rachel Marie Beltran.
Raj Lawrence Olson.
Catherine Claire Burgeon.
Edon Arier Raymond.
Courtney Catherine Ferreira.
William Elijah Nussbaum.
Max Andrew Jordan.
Rena Yushan Zhu.
Stephanie Ann Hayes.
Tyson Ann Malley.
Grace Yasu Kaufman.
Julia Lauren Willerson.
Tyler Michelle Bannister.
Caitlin Ruth Walsh.
Katie Joy Altpeter.
Kelly Pierce.
Noreen Bridget Byrne.
Madeline Page Sopko.
Gabrielle Cohen.
Emma Sullivan Sell.
Lorraine Leigh Brabant.
Lindsay Nicole Sharon.
Carol Ann Klingus.
Peyton Kelly Stein.
Maya Levy.
Christina Elizabeth Fickenstad.
Jake Nathan Gilman,
Selena Park,
Taylor Kennedy,
Juliana Michelle Pandino,
Amira Ahmed Mahmood,
Catalina Olivia Orkiba,
Lisa Nicole Apazidis,
Diana Christine Nicolas,
Elizabeth Sophia Akel,
Ann Keck Pearson,
William Charles Hassel,
Alexa Tiffany Morin,
Brianne Marie Fritzy,
Alexis Taylor Maida,
Christopher Crusoe Hunt, Alina Marie Thomas, Danielle Fox,
Jayan He,
Kensley G. Lipka,
Lauren Rose Gabrielle,
Emily Hoffman,
Haley Amanda Pachter,
Lara L. Hendrian,
Corey Matthew Poe,
Elliot Ross Behar,
Ryan M. Morita,
Cole Whittier Evans,
James Blackford Osgood,
Kevin Graff,
Jake Austin Trevelyan,
Christian J. Cabrera,
David Matthew Pochapin,
Nicholas A. Hoffman,
Matthew Ryan O'Donnell,
Bailey Tess Harris,
Eric Andrew Sherman,
McLean Elizabeth Campbell,
Eric Liu,
Jillian Lee Gude,
Diego Rojo,
Michelle Renee Didzig,
Anthony A. Rivera,
Shannon Elizabeth Beatty,
Brian K. Tan,
Alexandra Jane Brostoff,
Isabel Lee Young Stanbridge,
Kendall Glynn,
Caitlin Lorraine Rees,
Emily Nicole Brown,
Catherine Briel Morel,
Emily E. Buell,
Michael Brian Middlebrook,
Isabel Malavarapu,
Nathaniel F. Trofa,
Thomas Horry,
Stephanie Eileen Pugh,
Patrick John Knightley,
Connor Fitzgerald Malloy,
Alexander Buckler,
Dylan Stephen Wadika,
Aldine Cope,
Edward Colin Tanner,
Remy Sarah Heller,
Matthew Lowell Swimmen,
Justin M. Brown,
Christopher Frederick Trump,
Christian A. Chappis,
Charles Anthony Muller,
Courtney Ann Caprell,
Jacob David Rimzadeh,
Stephanie Kong,
Scott McNiven Ravieli,
James Austin Houvet,
James Thomas Papadoulos,
Gerard Lee Hammerschmidt III,
Benjamin Morris Schreiber,
Tyler Robert Evans,
Taylor Page Stripe,
Brian Stephen Fernandez,
Bridget Sullivan,
Michael Dimitri Anthony,
Liana B. Port,
Julia Christine Arroque,
Alexandra Bryce Ross,
Brandon Gia Gia,
Kelly Kennedy Skewis,
Christopher Paul Otari,
Ian M. Muita,
Michael J. Gibbons,
Zachary Lusberg St. Romain,
Hassan Adam T. Daniel Wee,
Maria Vargas Aguilar,
Liam Marshall Flanagan,
Sarah Fuerte Smith,
Kyle Rogers Herigel,
Benjamin Pan,
Andrew David Clayton,
Isabella Ambrosia Zimmerman,
William Ernst Bartlett,
Carly
Ernest.
Elizabeth Powers,
Andrew G. Carlin,
Hannah C. Shulman,
J. Simon King,
Maxwell Anson Rodenborn,
Devin Love,
Renee Raphael Marin,
Patrick Robert Cummings,
Andrew Stephen Weiss,
Michael Jared Cohen,
Emre Dennis Soybas,
Jane S. Kleiner,
Hannah Marie Patrick,
Morgan Alexander Katona,
Jennifer Marie Stoll,
Anika Victoria John,
Anthony Alfonso Marone,
Allison Elizabeth Cannon,
Jeffrey Austin Shanefeldt,
Madeline R. Condolis,
Ryan Patrick Malloy,
Alexander Galvin,
Thomas Daniel Schumacher,
Mona Khan,
Liborio Riccatitli,
Victoria Elise Lai,
Thomas Zuweski,
Christian Ian Domes,
Timothy Robert Wagner,
William Brian Hagan Lee,
Devon Thomas Saturnia,
Christopher Paul Lobo,
Andrew Park,
Christopher Charles Butera,
Benjamin James Teeple,
Kenneth Michael Farricker Jr.,
Michael J. Ulsh,
Juan Carlos Cancillo,
Trevor Jameson Wood,
Sean Ben Shaggett,
Jennifer Mary Pannoni,
Robert Stockton Cole III,
Vanessa Ray Snyder,
Liam James Hurley,
Jacob Alexander Vixie,
Jacob Michael Fellman,
Christopher Aaron Redden,
Liam Thomas Healy,
Nicholas James Tulp,
Owen Anderson Doherty,
Samuel Velez,
Owen Patrick Laughlin,
Matthew Rice Prestipino,
Keith Paul Calvaruso,
Edward H. Purdy,
Harrison Kaufman,
William Earl Shantz III,
Eric Robert Hawkinson,
Tristan John Stritzel,
Jedu Kusar,
Zenyang Hillary Nee,
Matthew Stephen Gargano,
Matthew Joseph Morana,
Luke Gregory Cristiano,
Jake Wells Martin,
Jacob Charles Buskirk,
Peter Douglas McFerrin,
Matthew Butler,
Edward Mish III,
Connor Bianchini,
Alexander Joseph Rogers,
William Otley Flick III,
Brian Russell,
Sharon Chen,
Morgan Watt McQuaid,
Christopher Edward Fury,
Dana Myeroff,
Kyle Mitchell Lufroy,
Julia Marie Sifo,
Vladimir Eugenio Castillo,
Catherine Anna McManus,
Lindsay Michelle Ilkner,
Maxwell J. Radetsky,
Alexis Rose Jackson,
Ethan Andrew Whitney,
Danielle S. Cooperman,
Andres Martinez,
Grace Bridget Hoover,
Scott Elliott Parker Jr.,
Hannah Rose Kravats,
Ryan D. Pomrinka,
Samantha Leigh Kent,
Gregory R. Seward,
Rebecca Ann Kearns,
Melissa Louise Segovia,
Lindsay F. Gelber,
Allison Patricia Morell,
Melissa Marley Kraus,
Daniel John Sutman,
Megan Ryan Lomuto,
Sabrina Lynn Mertz,
Craig Allen Chick,
Isabel Christina McEwen,
Michael J. DiRenzo,
Brian Andrew Meyer,
William Thomas Gunn,
Caitlin Noreen Quinn,
Kelly Goff,
Andrew Bear Pettit,
Lauren Elizabeth Dice,
Lucas E. Spence,
Courtney Lynn Hennig,
Matthew George Rimole,
Lindsay Alvarez,
Shinyu Snow Lee,
Emily Elizabeth DeVell,
Ji Yu Chen,
Reagan John,
Rachel Yee,
Paul John Dunn III,
Lauren Kelsey Small,
Tyler Joseph Casamenti,
Ji Won Yum,
Dustin Shane Hart,
Rachel S. Sun,
Leon Calvin Bellin III,
Amy Zhang,
Benjamin Winston Booth,
Elizabeth Ann Solo,
Cole DeWild Caswell,
Jake Daniel Taft,
John Osborne Green,
Andrew Harrison Steinberg,
Eric S. Del Gizo,
Joshua Brian Stutman,
Julia Maria Crisac,
William Spencer Shee,
Taylor Elaine Carley,
Zachary James Rigo,
Austin James Karkoff,
Wentui Zhang,
Ulwana Cheyenne Hill,
Shi Lu Zhu,
Sabina Chang,
Ada Towell,
Eileen Espana,
Alex Zhao,
Marielle Amelia Bay,
Lin Tui Pham,
Shirley Chung,
Sarah Zhang,
Jaehee Jill,
Will Vu,
Paula Marcella Grusi, Allison Elizabeth Giraldo, Sarah Aguilar Federman, Brandon Kong, James Nicholas Sirignano, Nikita Chelya Swami, Sarah Fletcher Dillon, Elizabeth James Horvath, Ian Thomas Durkin, Michael Nolan Kessler, Arturo William Arguello, Evan Richard Held, Mark William Gilbert, Simon Adler, Benjamin Kristen Hoff, Yosef Nezer Kawash, Lindsay Maria Amarohano, Mert Yilmaz Bilgin, Hayun Young Chu, Callum John Bishop, Mark William Robert Forrest, Philip Hernandez.
I now recognize William Godelli, Dean of the College of Education.
I will now present the degree candidates for the College of Education. Will the candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Education and Doctor of Philosophy please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Education and Doctor of Philosophy in a field of specialization and upon the recommendation of the faculty and by a vote of the Board of Trustees is presented to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Doctor of Education or Doctor of Philosophy with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Doctors of Education and Doctors of Philosophy with our hearty congratulations and applause. Will the candidates for the degree of Educational Specialist, Master of Arts, Master of Education, and Master of Science please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for Educational Specialist or the Master's degree in a field of specialization, and upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees is presented to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Educational Specialist, Master of Arts, Master of Education, or Master of Science, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Educational Specialists and Master's degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause. The ushers will now bring the degree candidates from the College of Education forward to be individually recognized.
Brittany Nicole Zakeski.
The following graduates are receiving a doctorate level degree. Kelly Renee Grace. The following graduates are receiving an educational specialist or master's level degree. Nilu Aflatuni. Sarah Marissa Barbakoff.
Julia Morm.
R.E.L. Shalom Arianov.
Ying Liu.
Elizabeth Ann Boyd.
Obiama Chimela Akabu.
Nicole Elizabeth Carl.
Halima Peno.
Alyssa Marie Blasco.
Chin Chin Young.
Ariana Christine Charlesworth.
Megan Martig Nettie.
Madhuri Shmuk.
Alexandra Mary
Jordan Demansky.
Alexandra Mary Madison.
Jason Evans.
Lindsay Ann Mafferdini.
Michael E. Facinetto.
Kelsey Lauren Minnering.
Carly Danielle Farrar.
Joshua E. May.
Jessica Nicole Foster Eli.
Dane Barrett McDonald.
Kimberly Bird.
Sarah Elizabeth Merlot.
Julia Ann Garcia.
Ebrar Batol Atsurk.
Danielle Guffrey Moyer.
Benjamin Shepard Quinones.
Keith Eric Gustafson.
Amy Riveditzo.
Ramona Denise Holly Major.
Brittany Lynn Martin.
Kimberly Lucille Ivory.
Joelle Celine Reinhardt.
Emily K. Johnson.
Chelsea M. Reverbank.
Alicia A. Kaiser.
Juliet Maizad Saba.
Dana Marie Kowalchuk.
Gina Rosemarie Santini.
Victoria Ann Knepp.
Megan Marie Scanlon.
Christine Nicole Andrew.
Kira Ianathe Sylvanasa.
Megan Louise Murphy.
Christine Elizabeth Taylor.
Fuad Alakbarov.
Ashley Elizabeth Walter.
Africa Lewis.
Kristen Westner. Megan Kathleen Wright. Okay. Allison Nicole Yarko. Charles H. Sawyer. Syed Kalamala Abed. Tamalarn Atavgoff. Name. Syed Abdul Bashir. Ashley Sikora. Courtney Ann Taylor.
I now recognize Stephen DeWorth, Dean of the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science.
Thank you, Provost Farrell. I will now present the degree candidates for the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science. Will the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in a field of specialization, and, upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Doctors of Philosophy with our hearty congratulations and applause. I will now present the candidates for master's degrees in the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science. Will the candidates for the degrees of Master of Engineering and Master of Science please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the master's degree in a field of specialization and, upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Master of Engineering or Master of Science with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the master's degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause. Will the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in the various fields of engineering and applied science please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed all of the requirements for graduation and, upon the recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive the degree of Bachelor of Science in that field of engineering and applied science for which the candidate has qualified.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Bachelor of Science in the field of engineering and applied science for which you have qualified, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the Bachelor of Science degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause.
The ushers will now invite the degree candidates from the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science forward to be individually recognized.
The following graduates are receiving a doctoral degree. Omar Alwad.
Caroline Rachel Multari.
Abdullah Afis.
Jeffrey Russell Smith.
Kaylin Chai.
Wei Sun.
Sartap Chai.
Christopher George Yule.
Ovidu Don.
Mohammad Shahabsafa.
Mohammad Javid Asidi. Kodis Hatalis. Gerard Vincent Gordon. Ruchid Singh. Yonghang Wang. Shuyan Lee. Ali Ahmed Rahi. Awadan Julani. Huan Yang. The following graduates are receiving a master's degree. Stephen Michael Altieri.
Dylan MacDonald.
Erden Ban.
Yushin Sang.
Yasin Q.
Zixia Wang.
Chohana Cheng.
Yikun Wang.
Kevin Ding.
Harsh Mehta.
Yu Lev.
Watsol Rajiv Muchala.
Yu Shu.
Gwen Rosong.
Havni Wang.
Tanya Ren.
Huna Wang.
Zuyan Lee.
Zinu Lee.
Si Cheng.
Fiona Lee.
Brooke Aftabatu Mahmoud.
Garu Gu.
James Luke Wilkinson.
Chang Chow.
Quincy.
Jiden Dung.
Praveen Pradeep Narwalkar.
Jampan Lu.
Tanmay Motinal Patil.
Chahan Feng.
Karan Shiat.
Fua Haddad.
Roshi Shait. Shoban Kren Raka.
Nisars Kapidia.
Shiam Mokund Thakur.
Taha Kapasi.
Shinyan Wang.
Sugar Kapez Jajina.
Sihan Ma.
Sidhan
Wei Chen Wang.
Sidhan Borowik.
Shaoqing Chang.
Dylan Michael Gray.
Yan Shao Yu.
Nathan Richard Deramond.
Benjamin Gordon Smith.
James Russell Davey V.
Angel Elizabeth Rolla.
Jared Scott Deshevsky.
Angelica Weislich.
Carolyn Ruth Kaufman.
Nick Robert Walletta.
Michelle Lynn Fedun.
Boven Luke Plogman.
Lindsay Chandana Cheryl Gusami.
Matter Ryan Muti.
Jen Fan.
Robert Natalian Witkoshi.
Chiat Singh La.
Manuel Alejandro Jara Perez.
Jin Yu Gan.
Patricia Sierra.
Karen Liu.
Jeffrey Ross Breitling.
Have you hung?
Ting Ting Ma.
Nanju Zhang.
Larkin Leach.
Samir Saeed Khan.
Shangbin Peng.
Frederick Coleman.
Yibo Yuan.
David Beauregard.
Beijia Yin.
Alex Salmon Demuth.
Shiping Zheng.
Griffin Lewis Green.
Shaheng Wu.
Tristan Storm Morales.
Baoying Chen.
George Benjamin Hervey.
Chuchin Chong.
Li Zhang.
Chaoxin Ling.
Concepcion Sosa.
Penkai Wang.
Maria Alejandra Castro Navarrete. Sarah Emily Garberg. Shanice N. Morrow. Zane Shanice Jackson. Rachel Jacqueline Shields. Hannah Christine Lesko. Kyle Douglas Kirk. Gavin Machulet Hatfield. Khalid Faoud Al-Kwasabi. Jabra Mohammad Ashiri. Stephen Scott Lupino. Anthony Feehey.
The following graduates are receiving a bachelor's level degree. John Joseph Hammond III.
Addison Ray Roberts.
Ruby Allen Kurtz.
Marshall Parks Stallings.
Rachel Marie Lambert.
Benjamin T. Mayerson.
Taylor May Gomez.
Edward Kenny Raymond.
Annalisa Louise Davis.
Timothy Fuzzy Predol.
Rachel Alexandra Canisi.
Jonathan James Spur.
Saniat Francelli Barrios Huertas.
Rebecca Lynn Woods.
Allison Rose Kundrick.
Andrew Michael Robbins.
Dominic V. Gargiulo.
Anthony Perez Lopez.
Aaron Joan Hank.
Paul D. Tran.
Mariah Elizabeth Garcia.
Ryan Patrick Schatz.
Ann Ingram Berry.
Isaac Maladis.
Nicole Elizabeth Belial.
Freddie Java Ramirez.
Anna Ray Katz.
Nathaniel Joseph Rex.
Madison Page Light.
Dylan Smolin.
Alexandra J. Jabor.
Suhash Shaka.
Rayhan Kulervis.
Bernetta Elizabeth Thames.
Michael John Forzato.
John M. Waldo.
Scott Martin Galdi.
Daniel Joseph McCheney.
Nicholas Anthony Lama.
Anina Xian He.
Eric James Barron.
Sidney K. Yan.
Rob Douglas Avery.
Emma Sima Tao.
Monica Carolina Buchek.
Gray James Shaker.
Michaela Helen Farley.
Helen Elizabeth Wallen.
Eliza Catherine Brush.
Elizabeth H. Shaffrey.
Juia Lee.
Bailing Zhou.
Tang Tang Zhao.
Xiaotang Ye.
Bethany Ann Crosby.
Yichen Xu.
Christopher Nicholas Leinbach.
Jack H. Temper.
Stephanie Veronica Liebel.
Griffin Andrew Turner.
Arthur Barnabas Cuddy III.
Natalie Christine Terra Martinez.
Robert Spencer Gould.
Evans Louis Simon.
Nicholas C. Bryant.
Sarah Mahi Sadihaki.
Kevin Lee.
Michael Brian Sullivan Jr.
Bartwame Constante Bachiwiewicz.
Homemade.
Andrew Carl Goldman.
Edward Paul Stangraber.
Elijah Richard Cartier.
Kyle Matthew Wojciechowski.
Justin Chen.
Brian Dominic McCain.
Emma Northrop Isaacs.
Alexander Frederick Yod II.
Jacob Ryan Dooley.
David Austin Pager.
Molly Huang.
Declan John Nowak.
Jason Lopez Galindo.
Colin Alexander Scaler.
Brian Anthony Caruso.
Andrew Robert Price.
Christopher Joseph Farnan.
Yihan Zhu.
Sierra Justine Bachman.
Yang Zhe Sun.
Ruben Castro Espinoza.
Michelle de Carmen Cazada,
Henry Jesus Espinel,
Andres Leandro Sola,
Vinyan Serge Ainu,
Megan Elizabeth Reid,
Natalie Elisa Inez Castillo,
Joseph Michael Ventoja, Jr.,
Kaiti Huang,
Kayan C. Naives,
Samuel Benjamin Holt,
Cole John Mike N. Emo,
Eric Richard Andelicado,
Robert John Tishben,
Hanbi Hu,
Michael Alex Rosenberg,
Albert Johnwoo Huang,
Patrick Daniel Zong,
Brendan Patrick Curran,
Clinton R. Sutter,
Mitchell Ernest Daddario,
Matthew S. Madrid,
Samuel Joseph Lading,
Patrick Murphy,
Joseph Stewart Inglis,
Nicholas Martin Serrano,
Trent Criswell Gray Jr.,
Justin Christopher Toto,
Lillian Emily Concepcion,
Zachary David Miller,
Pendleton Marie Herring,
Nathan Georgian Ray,
Sky Shance Basir,
Michael Reed Smallwood,
Andrew Joseph Dintino,
Benjamin Bray Power,
Anthony Alexander Drasba,
Connor Joseph Rush,
Reed James Abrams,
Matthew A. Tracy,
Samantha Grace Cracky,
Molly Margaret Tanner,
Samantha Alyssa Goldberg,
Mallory Paulina Sherbley,
Alec M. Farrell III,
Elizabeth N. Mendel,
Yusuf Khaled Awad,
Victoria Catherine Richardson,
Noah Zachary Haversat,
Andres G. Trino,
Tommaso G. Dato,
Taylor Frisch Monaghan,
Michael Lim,
Rayleigh Thomas Sage,
Troy Isaac Ager,
Evan Edward Sander Cook,
Ranjak Bagwat,
Kathleen Alicia Tallman,
Kyle P. Albanico,
Monica Christine Powers,
Samuel Saul Flansman,
Matthew J. Mortano,
Christian P. Murphy,
David Alejandro Tapia,
Riley Eleanor Callahan,
Daniel A. Spingran,
Antonius Chakif,
Miratan Stradov,
Yanni Luca,
Reed Pinkrich,
Stephen Alexander Gels,
Rohil Parke,
Andrew Brian Fortier,
Alexander T. Spitzer,
Brooke Samantha Glassman,
Roshin Rinette Paul,
Jasmine A. Lomax,
Daniel Razai Garakoni,
Connor Andrew Deppert,
Bradley Thomas Stevenson,
Kelly Deanne Frank,
Genevieve Mary Simon,
Annalise Rose Caniff,
Haley Jen Wolf,
Robert J. DeLello,
Daniel John Thomas,
Brendan Joseph Ingalls,
James Moloznik,
Da Hyun Ko,
Ravina Samtani,
Yin Chen Dang,
Nicole Ashley Malhovsky,
Yu King Duan,
Connor Gray Schiff,
Anthony Richard Barbado,
congratulations, Jack Myers Scott,
Onaur Ganger Atesh,
Meredith Claire Nero,
Daniel Jacob Lindsay,
Amanda Nicole Smith,
Brooke Deborah Lott,
Claire S. Severe,
Melissa Ann Eschman,
Ashley E. May Ziris,
Christina Patrice Conley,
Shurad Patel,
Jeffrey Skipper Lloyd Erickson Jr.,
Thomas Edward Macon,
Justin Graham Caspar,
Brian Marshall Wright,
Jonathan Tucker Freed,
Samuel Robert Sheeran,
John Chamandi Cook,
Mark David Walker,
Andrew J. Gibson,
Daniel Alexander Cicera,
Jordan Mitchell Gifford,
Matthew James Sheehan,
Jacob Peter Anderson.
Brian Donkey Yanyi.
Alexander Samuel Goff.
Yupin Shi.
Jonathan Shu.
Tanyang Sun.
Andrew Samuel Gilbert.
Haiteng Wei.
Edward Arthur Gardner.
Han Zheng.
Jaish Chen.
Yiying Shang.
Jay Say.
Zheng Yo Shong.
Yifan Huang.
Yichou Yi.
Yiming Liu.
Sibo Zheng.
Chase Jonathan Gallick.
Boshan Zheng.
Mariah X. Kozub.
John Newman McBrien Jr.
Kylie Aman Ginsberg.
Corey R. Trumbower.
Grace Ann Eckstein.
James Edward Mock.
Brielle Kirk.
Ryan Michael Morgan.
Nicole Deannabelle.
Kian Robert O'Brien.
Adam Donald Berna Finke.
Aticha Shuote.
Carter Thomas Kenahan.
Duke Ming Tran.
Jessica Lynn Sacco.
Gabriela Noel Vinson.
Jonah Frederick Casella.
Walter Robert Robinson.
Elizabeth Emma King.
Samuel A. Minnick.
Paige Elizabeth Dolphin.
Patricia Sidikou.
Nastara May Greenberg.
Jordan Urica.
Stephen William Cornish. James Evan Bassano. Joanne Yan Ting Huang. Michael A. Crabtree. Danielle Elise Guyry. Jocelyn Cecilia Godoy. Annalise Sophia Fernandez. Eric Roy Alsberg. Frank Richard Daniels. Ruth Belena Densamo. Jarrett Reynolds Kareen. Serena Chor-Hing Lai. Larissa Lin. Dan Yin Lee. Jericho Mark Kashulins. Alan Michael Brutcher Jr. Jasper Kikeme Chumba. Ching Chuan Hu. Nayantara Chason. Rebecca Margaret Lentz. Dewan Eileen Zhang. Marianne Athar Khan. Nellie Lian. Zachary Jason Fisher. John McConaughey Clark. Noah Jacob Katz. Kevin M. Latwitz. Sean Michael Cranny. Jonathan Howe. Matthew James Corse. Brennan Alexander Kaczynski. Brian James Gratsky. Zachary Amin Badrawi. Patrick Hall Champagne. Zihao Cheng. Justin Lee. Jacob Benjamin Bear. Judy Baozulu. Kexin Chen. Zishang Lin. He Huang. Uam Hua. Tian Changgi.
President Simon, I present to you the candidates for the interdisciplinary programs from the College of Business and Economics and the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science for the degrees of Masters of Science in Analytical Finance and Masters of Business Administration and Engineering. Will the candidates for these degrees please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for the master's degree in a field of specialization, and upon recommendation of the faculty and by vote of the Board of Trustees, I present them to you to receive that degree.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Master of Science in Analytical Finance or Master of Business Administration and Engineering with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the master's degree recipients with our hearty congratulations and applause.
I now present the candidates for the interdisciplinary programs from the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Business and Economics, and the P.C. Rossin College of Engineering and Applied Science for the degrees of Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Business, Bachelor of Science in Integrated Business and Engineering, and Bachelor of Science Integrated Degree in Engineering, Arts, and Sciences. Will the candidates for these degrees please rise? President Simon, each of these candidates has completed the requirements for graduation and, upon the recommendation of the faculty and by a vote of the Board of Trustees, is presented to you to receive Bachelor of Science degrees in their specialized interdisciplinary fields.
Candidates, I confer upon each of you the degree of Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Business, Bachelor of Science in Integrated Business and Engineering, Bachelor of Science Integrated Degree in Engineering, Arts, and Sciences, for which you have qualified with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto.
Please recognize the recipients of those degrees with our hearty congratulations and applause. The ushers will now bring these degree candidates forward to be individually recognized. You going to go down?
The following graduates are receiving a master's level degree. Daniel Colville.
Habu Zhang.
Win Yi Bai.
Runcheng Zhang.
Shin Fan.
Siyu Wu. Zihao Chen. Wei Zuan Yang. Sing Lu Wan. Louis Wong. Siyu Quinn. Go. Fa Yang Tian. Zuri Liz. Zayu Pan. Jingalu Zhu. Ivan Louis Riddell.
The following graduates are receiving a bachelor's level degree. Grace Young Kim.
Nimesh Joseph Monson.
Samuel J. Evers.
Pacharapon Tanasan Sopaporn.
David Liu.
Carolyn Victoria Miller.
Bo Han Chen.
Mary Catherine Newport.
Marcos Lozano Mendez.
Brock William Smickley.
Alexander Ozahar James.
William J. Powers.
Daniel Richard Coker.
Thomas Emmanuel Vanier.
Ian David Bender.
Ryan C. McGuire.
Ryan Harrison Beckett.
Aaron Benjamin Rotem.
Sam Kim.
Nikita Primalia Shankar.
Daniel Kang.
Brian Joseph Venter.
Alfonso Albuquerque.
Adam Omar Rahim.
Nicole Taylor Lee.
Kristen Rita Sylvie.
Alexandra Platt Johnson.
Griffin Patrick Mooney.
Jay Hai.
Liam Harold Mahoney.
Holly Elizabeth Callahan.
Samantha Nora Ryan.
Hui Lai Gu.
Emily Christina Walczek.
Roshan Sham Giannani.
Laura Miller Wells.
Connor Gray Jen.
Juliet Claire Smith.
Musa Sheikh Jamshed.
Hannah Moe.
Jordan Geiger.
Sophia Rose Parola.
Maggie Dora Helms.
Catherine Robichaud Medlock.
Jonathan Klein Hens,
Aiden Spencer,
George Crane Cooper,
Timothy John Molino,
Timothy Philip LaRoe,
Dean Harris Paparian,
Bryant Joseph Bourne,
Catherine Grace Shariro,
Jonathan Aaron Glickman,
Abigail Jean Miller,
Kieran James Horan,
Emily Carolyn Randolph,
Liam Michael Cronin,
Danielle Nicole Raffanelli,
Brian Todd Luster,
Juliet Chelsea Panikella,
Cole Stephen Jeriak,
Conrad Ozarek,
Nicholas Gaelic,
June Sun Wu,
Brent Hamilton Jacobs,
Elizabeth Lauren Locker,
Jonathan Richard Homan,
Eric Benjamin Picard,
Kristen Elizabeth Hoy,
Inigo Martine Zubiaga,
Stephen Geoffrey Greenwald,
Rachel Lynn McCook,
Thor Griffin Gilman,
Delaney McCaffrey,
Patrick Stanley Ellison,
Alexis Amber Parcells,
Hai Tong Lee,
Anil Morissetti,
Zachary Leo Drake,
Devin Alexander Poe,
Brian A. Arita,
Frank Joseph Tito,
Leah Rose Cherish,
Nicholas McIntyre,
Sage L. Chasen,
Ryan Papazoglu,
Bryant S. Lindsay,
Lucas Quesado Vasconcelos,
Nellie Sherry Allen,
Fung Ming Young,
Matthew Mark Adesi,
Early Chiu,
Francisco E. Gutierrez Eza,
Kevin Abhishek Mittal,
Jonathan Vincent Georgie,
Malcolm Bulatovic Skobel,
Thomas Martin Gallo,
Casey Ann Urban,
Brianna Capri Brady,
William E. Silverstone,
Derek Jason Huber,
Caroline Fanwest Tuck,
Sarah Casey Botwinick,
Rebecca Yolora Salzberg Frank,
Charles Chernow Inwald,
Emily Weston,
Paul Stephen Groshalski,
Jasmine Rachel Wong,
Jordan Syed Alam,
Talia Rose Rodke,
Kyle R. Berman,
Evan Douglas Mihuk,
Jordan David Cutler,
Kevin Lee Sao,
Ethan F. Froman,
Jackson Robert Monin,
Ryan Elsabay,
Tenchen Yang,
Brian Scott Logston,
Nicole Samantha Weber,
Uditya Jayasingh,
Siani Stephens Hayes,
Daniel Amon Kawatiwa,
Idalis Torres,
James McRae Buddell,
Cortland Alexander Schuyler,
Justin Daniel Hassenfeld,
Zetao Wang, ZJ Michael Yang,
So this is that moment when all our newly minted Lehigh University graduates should move their tassel from the right to the left. Let's give all our graduates a hearty round of applause. Congratulations. I would now like to welcome Jill Triani, class of 1994, and outgoing president of the Lehigh University Alumni Association Board of Directors, to address our newest Lehigh University alumni.
Thank you, President Simon. Congratulations, class of 2019. I am honored to welcome you to the Lehigh alumni family. We are proud of your accomplishments and wish you well, as you begin your careers or further your education. There are over 80,000 Lehigh alumni worldwide, so you are certain to run into one of us no matter where life takes you. Your time at Lehigh was filled with many experiences. I am sure there were ups and downs, laughter and tears, late nights of fun, and long nights of studying. Through these experiences, you learned a lot about yourself, created lasting friendships, and of course, received a valuable education. I remember sitting in those same seats 25 years ago, excited to take the next step and leave college behind. What I did not realize in that moment is that Lehigh is a part of us, and we take Lehigh with us wherever we go. It's not just the brown and white gear you will proudly wear. It's the relationships, the memories, and the love for the Lehigh family that will be with you for life. So, what can you do as alumni? I ask two things of you. First, please update alumni relations with your new contact information every time you relocate. Lehigh has many wonderful programs and events for alumni, and you won't know about them if Lehigh can't find you. Second, stay involved. Join your local alumni club. Attend events, whether virtually or in person. Come back for Lehigh Lafayette and your reunions. Mentor a student or offer internships. There are plenty of ways for you to remain connected to Lehigh. Do what works for your schedule, your passions, and interests. As your life changes, your ability to be involved will change, but you can always stay connected. Continuing our Lehigh tradition, Hal Fittipaldi, 1969 class president, and Giovanni Zlaket, 2019 class president, will now ring the bell.
Thank you. Following the recessional, please join Lehigh University's newest alumni at their college's receptions in the tents outside the south entrance of the stadium. And now, please rise for the benediction and remain standing for the alma mater.
Let us pray. Dear God, Spirit of the universe, source of goodness and light in our world, we gather here today to celebrate and to bless our graduates, the class of 2019. As they leave this campus, let them remember that it is their task, their duty, to make the world a better place and to help and support each other, their family, their friends, and all those in need. May they take the lessons that they have learned in and out of the classroom with them at this time of transition. Let them remember that there is so much to embrace and to celebrate in our world. However, let them also remember that there is brokenness in our world, and it is each of our jobs to bring healing and compassion and wholeness wherever we go. There is a blessing from the Jewish tradition with which I would like to end this benediction. It is a blessing that we say at every joyous occasion, whether personal or communal, but it is more than that. It reminds us to be present in each moment, to be aware of the infinite possibilities carried within us. May we be grateful for every moment, even the difficult ones. For each moment, each breath is a gift that we must celebrate. If you know this blessing, please join me, and if not, simply just say Amen after I read it in Hebrew and English, and then it's as if you said it with me. And then go out and celebrate. You have earned this moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Eternal One, our God, Spirit of all worlds, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this moment in time to celebrate. And let us say, Amen.
Where the Lehigh's rocky rapids rush from out the west, mid a grove of spreading chestnuts, walls in ivy dressed. On the breast of old South Mountain, reared against the sky, stands a noble alma mater, stands our dear Lehigh. Like a watchman on the mountain, stands she grandly bold. Earth and heaven secret seeking, hoarding them like gold. All she wrests from nature's storehouse, naught escapes her eye. Gives she gladly to her dear ones, while we bless Lehigh. We will ever live to love her, live to praise her name, live to make our lives add luster to her glorious fame. Let the glad notes wake the echoes, joyfully we cry. Hail to thee, our alma mater. Hail, all hail, Lehigh.